Okay, so I've got it sorted. Oops. So when I was in Calgary, you could bring everything back to the recycling place, the bottles and cans, refundables recycling place, and they would sort it for you. And you would get a refund for your milk containers, like oat milk containers, creamers containers, that sort of thing. But on Vancouver Island, that's not the case. First of all, you have to sort it yourself, and you don't get a refund for the other containers. So the way they just explained it to me was anything you wouldn't drink like straight up, you don't get a refund for, and they have to be sorted separately. And then all of the cans and bottles need to be sorted separately. And you do get a refund for those. You get your deposit back. I have separated those in separate baskets. Then I've got my garbage. Anyways, we're going to go do that. And then I'm going to get a couple groceries. Gotta go to the drugstore, that sort of thing. And then we're going to talk about something that I heard about on the 10% Happier podcast. A few weeks ago, I talked about that book, 10% Happier, that really sort of changed my life and kick-started me into a better mindset and really helped me out. And the 10 sort of habits that I adopted and still use today that have now just become second nature. And they talked about the cynical scale. The guest was talking about, they were talking about the world today and how difficult it is, how polarized people are, and how cynical society has gotten. And it gave this sort of scale of 8 questions to ask yourself. If you said true to 3 or more, then you were definitely more on the cynical side of the scale. And I want to go over those 8 things so we can ask ourselves that and why it's important to be a little less cynical, even in today's world. So, but first we got to get our groceries done, and it's chilly and damp here. So not a very nice day. It was supposed to be sunny. It's cold, and I want the heater on, and it's too noisy to talk to you guys when the heater's going. So let's get started. Almost missed the handle there. All right, we have done that chore. Now let's go get groceries. So chores are done. We are home and ready for a cup of pumpkin spice herbal tea. Pumpkin spice season, my favorite time of the year. So let's talk about cynicism. because the podcast that I listened to on 10% Happier was talking about cynicism and really the kind of world that we live in right now, with it being so divided, polarizing opinions. People seem to default to thinking the worst of each other, which is really a shame because, well, we'll get to that. Anyways, so they talked about this cynicism scale, and it's called the Cook Medley Hostility Scale, which measures cynicism and hostility, which I don't like the word hostility. Obviously, hostilities exist, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about cynicism. And, you know, what I think cynicism is. Cynicism is defaulting, having your default setting, having our default setting be distrust and thinking the worst of humanity. So this scale, apparently, if you answer yes to more than 3 things, then you're apparently considered cynical, not cynicist, cynical. And I think it's important that we talk about this because while I live in Canada, not in the U.S., the U.S. is having an election very soon, which is obviously dividing a lot of people, creating a lot of anxiety, a lot of angst, a lot of sort of pitting people against each other. We have moved from a world where we could respect somebody else's opinion if it was different than ours. We could agree to disagree and still get along. And that seems to be not just in the U.S., around the world. Certainly, I think it's starting to be a thing here in Canada, or maybe it always was as well. But we're moving to a place where if your opinion and your ideas don't align with mine, then we can't be friends. And not just can we not be friends, but you are now my adversary. And I think that is really so sad, very sad. Anyways, so let's talk about cynicism. Like, I've given you my definition. It's probably not the clinical definition. I haven't looked up the clinical definition. I'm just giving you my opinion. But let's go through these 8 questions and see how many of these you and I answer yes to. I'm bringing you up nice and close so we can get intimate and have a good discussion about this. And yes, you can see my ring light in the reflection of the window. I keep trying to not have the reflection show, and I don't know who I'm fooling, who I think I'm fooling. You guys know that obviously I have a light here. Otherwise, the lighting would suck, and we wouldn't have a very nice video. Now, would we? Okay, so let's start with number 1. And let's see how many of these we answer yes to. Number 1 is, I think most people would lie to get ahead. Do we think that's a yes or a no? Most people, not just some people, because obviously all of these will apply to some people. But we're thinking about, do we believe that most people would lie to get ahead? Number 2, most people are honest chiefly through fear of getting caught. That's an interesting one. Most people are only honest because they're afraid of getting caught. I have a saying that I always say to the kids, or always have, and that is, character is what you do when nobody's watching. When nobody could tell whether you did the right thing or the wrong thing, nobody would ever know. Your character is what you do in that moment, and I think that really ties into this. Do we think that most people are honest chiefly because they're afraid of getting caught? That's a good one. Number 3, most people will use somewhat unfair means to gain profit or an advantage rather than lose it. So do we think that most people, again, keep in mind, most people would use unfair advantage to either get ahead or to prevent losing an advantage? That's interesting. Number 4, no one cares much what happens to you. Nobody cares really what happens to you. Do we believe that? That nobody really cares what happens to us? Number 5 is an interesting one, especially given the state of our world. It's safer to trust nobody. Do we say yes or no to that? It's safer to trust nobody. Number 6, most people make friends because friends are likely to be useful to them. Ooh, that's a good one. Do most people make friends because choose friends that are going to be useful to them? That's interesting. Number 7, most people inwardly dislike putting themselves out to help other people. Do we think that most people actually don't like helping other people if it inconveniences them? Most people inwardly dislike putting themselves out to help other people. Interesting. And number 8, this is a good one. I commonly wonder what hidden reason another person may have for doing something nice to me. Do we think in the back of our minds, are we wondering what hidden reason that other person has for helping me out or doing something nice for me or being nice to me? So that is interesting. Those 8 questions, ooh, they're good questions. And I think I'm going to go through all 8 and see how many I answer yes to. And I want you guys to answer down below, how many of these do you think I would answer yes to, and how many of these do you answer yes to? And obviously, if you're not comfortable sharing, don't share. But if you are comfortable sharing, I would be curious to know, because I think it's important that we express these things, because if we feel them, they're valid. Whether they make sense or not in a rational mind, if you feel them emotionally, then obviously they're valid, and we should think about them, right? So, because these are our default settings. These are things that we subconsciously believe. So let's talk about all 8 of these and see what I think. I went grocery shopping, as I showed you. Why did I start eating? Can't eat with my mouth. Can't talk with my mouth full. I sure hope I can eat with my mouth full. Duh. All right. So I'm going to be 100% honest here. Absolutely. 100% honest. And I'm going to share maybe a little insight as to why I think the way I do, or if I've changed my mind over time. Number 1, I think most people would lie to get ahead. That is an easy one to, sort of jump to saying yes to. But I think the important word here is most people. Do I think most people would lie to get ahead? I don't think so. I think people by nature will exaggerate, and they will by nature focus on the positives and the sort of beneficial things versus the negatives and the things that are sort of go against it to get ahead. But I think that most people would be honest and truthful versus lying to get ahead. Though obviously there are people in this world, a lot of people that would lie. But when you think about 5 billion people on the planet, I don't know, some ridiculous amount, I don't think most of them would lie to get ahead. Okay, number 2, most people are honest basically because they're afraid of getting caught lying. Do I believe that that's true? No, I don't think so. I'm not honest because I'm afraid of getting caught lying. I don't want to get caught lying because I would be ashamed of myself, but I don't not lie because I'm afraid of getting caught lying. So no, I don't think most people would not lie, would be honest just because they're afraid of getting caught. No. Number three, most people will use unfair means to gain profit or an advantage rather than losing it. Unfair, that is the theme. So they would be dishonest, they would be do something unfair, maybe illegal. I don't think so. I've seen a lot of people work really hard to get ahead, and a lot of people sort of build an advantage and focus on their advantage, right? Because maybe professionally there's somebody who's better at something and they're going to really work on that and expand that to get ahead and work on your skills, build on your sort of advantages to get ahead and become better and sort of stand out. But using an unfair means to do that, would I, if I wanted to be better, the best at something, would I do it by something that was dishonest or unfair? No, I wouldn't, because it would take away the pride I had in achieving that. I think that's ultimately my thing. Number four, no one cares much what happens to you. I absolutely disagree with that. I think that I have not found that at all. There are obviously people that I have encountered in my world. I can think of one ex-boss who didn't care what happened to me. So certainly there are some people, but I don't think that no one cares. I think that most of us care greatly what happens to the people around us, the people we know and the people we don't know, right? Whether they're our neighbors, our classmates, our coworkers, or people across the world who are going through, horrific things with war and disease and, natural disasters. We care. And people care about us. People we don't even know care about us. And so, no, I can't answer yes to that one at all. Okay, number 6. Most people make friends because friends are likely to be useful to them. What kind of friends are those? Frenemies? No, I don't believe that at all. I I have never had, only once, actually, I can think of one time where somebody, became my friend in that they entered my world and wanted to be a friend for a reason that I considered what's the word, manipulative or self-serving or something like that. That they obviously wanted something from me. One time. And that person never became a really good friend at all. They were an acquaintance. And that was fine. But no, I don't think that's how people move through the world. The most of us, the majority of us, the vast majority of us, do not choose our friends because we expect that will be useful to us. We choose our friends because we have the same values, we have the same interests, that we share, experiences, or the same sense of humor, something like that. Sometimes we make friends situationally, right? We happen to be working with a group and we make friends with people that we might not otherwise have searched out to become friends with. And those are sometimes the most interesting and best because they're people we probably wouldn't have encountered otherwise. But, it's one thing to make a friend because you're really interested in them and you're curious, that gives you a benefit, right? Because you learn about somebody else, and that person, maybe you make a friend who's very different than you, and so they bring you out of your shell, or you get to sort of learn to do things, sports or activities that you might not have otherwise. But I don't think we go into relationships with the express intent to use people, because those are not friends. Those are not actions of a friend. No, I don't believe that at all. Okay, number 7. Most people inwardly dislike putting themselves out to help other people. But okay, so I don't believe that. I don't believe that most people do that. But we've all been like, I'm sure most of us, many of us have had that experience where somebody's moving and they're like, hey, you want to help me move? And we're like, okay, I'll help you move. I don't really want to, but I'll do it. But I think that that is like a very unique situation. But when I offer to help somebody, or when somebody asks me for help and I agree, I don't dislike that. I don't feel inconvenienced, even if it is a quote unquote inconvenience, right? I'm taking time out, we're taking time out from doing something that we would choose to do to help somebody else do something that they need help with. And no, I think if you're the kind of person, or if we're the kind of person that does things for people and then complains about it, whether they, like outwardly or inside sort of hold that, then I think we really need to be examining why we say yes to things. Because it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. Repeat after me. It's okay to say no, because if you're saying yes to things and then finding yourself not, unhappy or resentful, then you're saying yes for the wrong reasons. But I don't think most people do that at all. I don't think most people do that. All right, number 8. I commonly wonder what hidden reason another person may have for doing something nice to me. No, not at all. Do you know why? Because I don't have a hidden reason for doing something nice for somebody else. Other than, I guess it makes me feel good to be nice and to do nice things. So I guess I'm getting something out of it. But that's not a hidden reason. I think that's probably a very obvious reason. But do I think? No, I don't wonder. Here's the thing. I think with all of these things, there's a difference between being cynical and being smart and prudent. So I haven't said yes to any of these. I don't think I'm a cynical person. But I'm also not a naive person. I have lived a long time already on this planet, and I intend to live a long time longer. And I think I'm pretty good at reading people and making sure that I don't get taken advantage of. So I think there's a difference between being cynical and being naive and a target. Because while I'm not a cynical person, I do acknowledge that we live in a world where there is a percentage of the population that thrives on taking advantage of people who are not as worldly, or or who may be a little naive in certain situations. So I think it's important that while we don't want to be the people who feel like this all the time, who think all people are like this, because I think that is how many times can I say I think in this video? Let's not count. But it's quite obvious that there are people in this world who do take advantage of people who are not worldly, like I said. And it can become easy if we are glued to our TVs or, TikTok or Twitter or whatever 24/7 and only watching the negative cycles. It's easy to believe that all people are bad, that all people are out to get something, that everyone has an agenda, and that people will only do something for somebody else if there's something in it for them. It's easy to understand why so many people's default is that, especially if they've had a bad experience. Certainly, you're a lot less willing and able to trust if you've had a bad experience. But if we can pull back enough, if I can pull back enough to look at the grander world and to look at the people that I choose to have in my circle, none of those people are like this. None of them. And I am not like that. And here's the important thing I think we all should remember is I'm not trying hard. It's not that I'm trying hard not to be like that. My default, our default is to be kind, is to be generous, is to be caring, is to be honest, is to be fair, is to want other people to succeed as well as ourselves. We learn those behaviors, rightly or wrongly. We learn them through, experiences and how we're raised and, the things that happen. And more in the society, the negative is amplified. More and more in media, the negative is amplified. And so it's easy, if that's all we see, it's easy to believe that that's all there is. And so when I heard about this, I thought, ooh, I got to take that test and see. I was pretty sure I wasn't a cynical person. But I got to say, there have been times in my life where I have been a lot more cynical because I was in a very painful place in my life at those times where somebody had hurt me. And when somebody has hurt you, it's easy to sort of expect other people to hurt you too. Let me know. Like, I would be so curious. Just put a number down below, right? You don't have to tell me which ones. If you want to, that's awesome too. But it would be great for us all to share because I've been very honest with you. And I think most of you who've watched me for a while probably are not surprised by my score. But like I say, honestly, at other parts of my life, when I was going through some very difficult times, I probably would have said yes to at least 3 of these. But, I've done a lot of work on how my outlook, my attitude, and how I perceive the world, how I choose to perceive the world. And that has made so much difference for me because when I was in that period where I was cynical, I was stressed all the time because when you're expecting bad things to happen, your cortisol level is always going to be higher. Your fight or flight is always going to be there. And it just causes anxiety and stress. So if you can, then if you've said yes to any of these, maybe those are the ones that you need to lean into, we need to lean into, and think about and ask ourselves why. Why do we feel like nobody cares what happens to us? And then ask ourselves, honestly, is that true? Is that true that nobody cares what happens to us? Because if you say that, if you can say yes to that, then I want you to know that I care what happens to you. And I'm pretty sure There's a lot of amazing people in that comment section down below that also care what happens to you. So there's that. It's, like I said earlier, a gray, overcast day. It's damp. It is not a very nice day. So I'm just going to curl up. I'm going to go bug Sophie. She's under my quilt on my bed, and I'm going to go bug her so she can come over here and curl up with me, because gray, rainy, yucky days are always so much better when you have a furry little critter curled up on your lap. I think we could all agree on that one. And so I think I'm going to go do that. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you think you're subscribed, can you check? Because sometimes randomly YouTube unsubscribes people from channels that they watch. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Again, comment down below. And I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe. If any of you are in that area down in the US that is being hit by the hurricane, I pray that you guys are safe, because that is just unbelievable, the devastation. So our hearts are with you, because most people do care. Anyways, again, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, including to yourselves. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Let's see if you can hear. Hey, Sophie. How are you? Hi. Come cuddle with me, okay? Yes. All right.